Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with a look at the market for the week ending July 14th, 2017. We'll begin as usual by reading the disclaimer. Trading and investing has large potential rewards and large potential risks. This video presentation is designed for educational purposes only and is not a solicitation or advice to buy or sell any securities or other tradable instruments. You must be aware of the risks and be willing to accept them in order to invest in the markets. Consult a licensed professional investment advisor for investment advice, since I am not one. We'll begin as usual by looking at the charts of the S&P 500. So here's that chart of the S&P 500, the weekly chart. By the way, sometimes in doing these videos, I make an error. I would sometimes indicate that there's a bullish divergence when there is a bearish divergence, or vice versa. And I only discover it later on when I go back and look at the video after having published it. So that's a test to see if you're paying attention. In any case, the S&P 500, the weekly chart, the 4-period moving exponential moving average is still above the 9-period exponential moving average, and they're both above the 30 weighted moving average. So the trend is still up. If you're using moving averages as an indication of the trend or direction of the trend. Last week we had a really nice bullish bar, as we all know. And on Friday in particular, we had a nice move. The parabolic is still below the most recent bar. And of course, there's so many people who are concerned that this market is at new highs and it should pull back, and the odds favor a pullback. Meanwhile, the market chugs higher. Let's take a look at MACD. Now we do have that bearish divergence. Got it right this time. Bearish divergence of MACD as a stock, as the S&P made a new high. Look at how low MACD was after having the back of the bulls broken here, as Alex would put it. So there is still that divergence, but apparently the bears are losing some strength here, and we'll see if that continues to be the case, because this past week the MACD histogram shortened up a little, and as we'll see on the daily chart, that was the case there. We could see it reflected there more prominently. Now RSI 12 is still above the 60% line, and that's pretty bullish, and this is a good indication of the trend on a weekly chart especially. Williams percent R is still above the 20% line, indicating momentum is pretty strong. And Chaikin money flow pulled back a bit, but it hasn't crossed the zero line. So all in all, this weekly chart of the S&P looks pretty bullish still. Let's take a look at the daily chart. Now on the daily chart of the S&P 500, we have the 4-period exponential moving average crossing above the 9, and the 9 crossing above the 30 weighted moving average, and that's a pretty nice move. Insofar as trend analysis is concerned, we seem to have had a turnaround here. So we came out of this consolidation range here. Parabolic switched to being below the last 3 bars, last 3 days of trading. So that's pretty bullish. It's saying that the trend is now up, confirming this indication from the trend lines here that the trend is up. If we look at the MACD histogram, we'll find we did have a bearish divergence of MACD, but the market seems, the S&P seems to have worked itself out of that bearish divergence and is now in bullish territory. So it looks as though the bears have done their thing. They seem to be exhausted, and the bulls seem to be pulling them out of the water once more. RSI 12, although on a daily chart we could still get some indication of what's happening, On the daily chart, it's crossing above the 60% line. And Williams percentor, interesting. Williams percentor is almost a mirror image of, not a mirror image, but an exact copy of the of Alex's force index. And when force index ticks down like this, spikes down as they call it, you see, we get a rally from there. Now we get another spike down, and we had a little bit of a rally so far. We'll see how that, if that continues. And of course, Chaikin money flow pull back a bit, but is still above the zero line. So the one caveat here now, apart from the fact that the market is now at new highs, the one caveat here is that we are now bumping up against the Bollinger Band, the upper Bollinger Band of the 2.7 standard deviations. So I won't be surprised to see this market consolidate a bit in the coming week, okay, to digest these gains here. Let's stop here and take a look at some individual charts. I will discuss the stocks that we've looked at in the past, starting with Microsoft. This is a weekly chart of Microsoft. I'm going to go pretty rapidly so we can get it all done within the 15 minutes we allotted. Microsoft, first of all, still in an uptrend. The 4 is above the 9, 9 above the 30. Parabolic just switched to be below the most recent bar, last week's bar. These three candlesticks forms a candlestick formation known as a bullish morning star. Big bearish candle, doji, large bullish candle. That's bullish. If we look below it at MACD histogram, we can see that histogram turned positive once more. RSI 12 is above 60%. Williams percentor trending up, and Chaikin money flow increased actually. Looking at the daily chart, we can see how the daily chart, we rallied recently, last week particularly, okay? And MACD histogram well above the zero line, and all the other indicators looking pretty good. So Microsoft, I own some of these stocks again, including Microsoft, and it looks pretty good. And here's another one that I bought again, which is Facebook. We have a similar pattern here, this bullish morning star formation, these three candlesticks. We have parabolic below the most recent bars, the last three especially. Remember, we calculated a target of 161.86 from this candlestick. We're now at 159.97. So we're getting pretty close to the target. But I like Facebook for the long term anyway. I might trade it. I'm not sure. I'll have to make that decision later on. MACD turned positive again. It's above the zero line, bullish territory. And you can see the other indicators looking pretty strong. Chaikin money flow and so on. Now with the daily chart, you can see similar to Microsoft. It looks very similar to Microsoft. We got this nice rally here. And MACD and Williams percentor and RSI 12, all of those things indicating this is a nice run up. We may be, I think we are overbought now, and we'll look at some of the other charts later on to see if that's the case. Let's look at something else. Here's a weekly chart of Visa. Another one that we saw was quite oversold, and I said I was going to buy them back. Well, 2 weeks ago when we did this, so I bought them back in this week here, and we had a nice run last week. We have the same kind of bullish morning star here. MACD is still in bearish territory, but just barely so, and the other indicators are still looking very positive. The daily chart, we can see a similar pattern here. So once we were oversold in this area here, this market, well, Visa rallied like so many of the other stocks we've been looking at. Let's stop and take a look at something else. Here's a weekly chart of NVIDIA, another one of these disrupting companies. They're really leading one of the leaders anyway in artificial intelligence and machine learning, etc. And you could see the same morning star formation here. Bearish candle, doji, bullish candle. They all follow a very similar pattern. You can see that 179.35 was the target we calculated from this triangle here. And if you look at MACD, it's in bullish territory, and likewise the other indicators are looking pretty strong. In fact, there was some increase in money flow here. Let's look at the daily chart. Daily chart, very similar pattern to what we saw in the other stocks we've looked at today. Rally from the oversold condition here, and we're now in bullish territory. MACD in bullish territory. Money flow seemed to be strong in the last week or two, in the last week really, the last few days of the last week. So that's as far as Nvidia is concerned. I own this one again. Very similar pattern here with Netflix. Here's that morning star formation. Bearish candle, big bearish candle, doji, hammer, and now a big bullish candle, which means we could probably go higher from here. We got to watch the earnings though. I'm going to send you an email on the dates of earnings on all these stocks that I'm interested in, and perhaps you are too. But if we look now at MACD is trending up again, and this is a weekly chart, and the other indicators here, RSI 12 and Williams percent are trending up. And look at the money flow. Money flow also increased last week. Daily chart, look at it. Similar kind of thing. We made that bottom that we saw, and we saw it on StockSpotter too. It was a swing signal, sorry. And since then we had that nice rally, and I got a lot of this here myself. I hope you did too. MACD trending above the zero line, parabolic by the way, now below the most recent bars, 4 of them, last 4 days. And at the bottom of the chart, money flow is good. So Netflix is another one of those that I bought back. Let's take a look at another one. Here's the weekly chart of Apple. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago I was going to be looking to buy Apple again, and that's what I did. Because I was looking to buy it somewhere around 142. Remember, I was talking about support around 142. Well, this is what it did last week. It moved up again last week. Now we do have a target of 158.89 off of the previous triangle that we looked at, and we'll see that on the daily chart particularly. So let's look at the daily chart. See this triangle here, we calculated this 158.89 target, and we could see on the daily chart we have a similar pattern to some of those other tech stocks and Visa that we looked at, where we have this 4 crossing above 9, 9 above 30, parabolic below the most recent bars, MACD trending up. Apple looks to be making a move here. We'll see that on the we'll see that more in a more pronounced manner when we look at the best choice charts in a minute. On the best choice. Since we're running out of time, I'm going to quickly go through charts on best choice for the same stocks we were just looking at. You can see what happened here with Microsoft was very oversold and is now overbought. So choice is ours. Do we hold it for the long term, or do we trade it? Because whenever it gets to that 90% line, it tends to pull back. See it over here again. So it's likely to pull back a bit, but there's no guarantee about that. Well, let's take a look at another one. Facebook, very similar. You could see it was very oversold as we saw a couple of weeks ago, and now it's overbought. Your decision if you have it. Visa was oversold below the 10% line. Now it's at 47%, still has some room to go. So I might just hold that one too. Somewhat similar case with Nvidia. Nvidia was finding support at this 50% line. Now it's approaching the 90% line. So again, have to decide whether we want to keep it. It's a keeper, or we want to trade it. That's all the time we have. Have a nice day, and we'll see you next week.